What is happening, everybody, man? Thank you guys for tuning in. Little power hour. We got a special treat today. We got three of us in the house. Didn't even realize coming together. It's usually, we always joke, my favorite conversations are the ones that just happen. And so as we jump in here, I know today is going to be no different. So we've got Mr. Kevin Schumacher in the house from cold Fort Collins.
Yes, sir.
Colorado. And then, of course, we've got Cuz over in paradise in the sunshine, sending some our way.
Giving y'all some warmth.
Kev, I want to jump in right away with you. And I know, some of the rabbit holes you've been going down, and there's some, I don't know how much you want to kind of open up and dive into, but you've had kind of an inside perspective of really kind of what's going on in the world of real estate, kind of behind the curtain that most people aren't even aware of. And I don't know how much you want to dive into or how much you can share, but we'd love to just kind of where your perspective has been over the last, several months, majority of this year, but really focused over the last several months of kind of understanding really what's happening in the country as it pertains to real estate.
Yeah, no, I'd love to, dive into that. It's, beginning of the year was interesting because we were, if I go back into the first of the year and when we were in getting all these multiple offers and it was just crazy, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 over list and, writing 8, 9, 10, 15 contracts and not getting them accepted. It was like, okay, who's actually buying something? Obviously, the sellers wanted all these inflated values, but my focus was like, who's buying? And that's where we dove into the large corporate or institutional investor. And so we got involved in the cash offers, where we started going really deep into certain markets, and we were finding off-market properties at volume. In 90 days, we sold over 300 homes in 90 days in 14 different markets. So we're like, okay, how do we expand? And so we went on a really fast run. And then all of a sudden the market just pivoted and shifted really quickly. So in July, we're like, what the hell happened here? And so, so then again, we're trying to, really dial in and figure out, okay, which way is the market going? What's happening? And so we went from fast growth and all of a sudden we went flat. And now what we're seeing is the opposite. So we went from acquisitions with these large investors to now the ramp up of potentially dispositions. But when we went flat, there was this pause with the consumer, because the consumer thought that values were continuing to go up and up and up. So we were really hammering with our agents on educating and trying to educate the consumer of where we are, where we're going, because they're gonna believe their own narrative in their head unless you give them solid data and facts. So that was the direction where we pivoted. And now all of a sudden what we're seeing is a huge buildup in defaults. And so that's where we've been for the last probably 45 to 60 days, is working with our data teams on the defaults. But what we found is when we started, I want to say the last numbers I heard, there was approximately 5% of all homeowners, which is about that carry a mortgage, which is about 8 million homeowners, are in default, somewhere between 3 to 5 payments behind. And so what we did is we started reaching out to them and delivering different messages to market. And what we learned is what you say really matters. Each word you use really matters and how you can relate, because these people have been hammered and hammered and hammered. Because if you're late on your mortgage, you're probably late on your car payment. You're probably late on your credit card payment. You probably have changed your cell phone number 3 or 4 times. So you have to be very strategic in how you connect with them. But what we found was originally people were in denial. And then now what we're seeing is 30, 45 days later, now they're calling us back and they're saying, hey, can we talk about that? Hey, so now they're starting to look for solutions. And I truly believe that will pick up significantly in first quarter, especially, January, February.
Yeah. And cause I want your perspective, just because of where you're at and where you live and the conversations that you're having. And, I remember, Stuman kind of sharing the example, just being a student of the DFW market and paying attention to defaults. And I forget, and I'm going to butcher the numbers, but it was like 3,600 homes in default in DFW, the whole Metroplex at any given time. And as we were going through, the end of 2021, he said that number was now was less than 100. And he's like, where do you think that, like, they haven't gone away? Like, they're still there. It's just a matter of time. And, I always share the example. I had Nolly Williams on Expert Mentors Live in February of 20. And he said one of the top niches to pay attention to is notice of defaults. And then everything that happened in 2021, which just delayed the process. And then I had him back on earlier this year, and he said one of the top niches is notice of defaults. And it's interesting talking to people, and they're like, well, there's not that many notice of defaults out there. And then hearing the statistics and hearing what Kevin's sharing, and just all of the examples and the things that we know to be true. So they're there. That's, those opportunities are going to be there. Our messages, the guaranteed sale, cash offers, are really going to resonate. But from your vantage point, which I love, just in the high net worth, and you're seeing the massive drops in property values and where you're at, and things still not moving, like, kind of perspective real estate wise. I mean, like, what are you experiencing? What are you seeing from your vantage point?
Yeah, it's super fascinating here, because things went up so dramatically fast, and then now, they were 4,000 market the other day at 1,000 a foot. So massive shift in a pretty short period of time. I mean, as fast as it went up, as it seems to be coming down. It's interesting. There's in this community, there's a lot of people that got hurt too, right? And so a lot of people have moved out that can't afford to live here anymore. That's been something that, we've seen a lot of our friends and people that we met when we first got here that have already left and gone back to the States and whatnot. And then you've got a large, base of crypto folks that live here as well. They got destroyed as well. But yeah, so it's definitely, it feels like it's more real here and than maybe, what it is in other parts of the country. I think that, when people get hit and their high net worth, it changes behavior pretty quickly, right? In terms of what they're willing to invest in or buy. It's been definitely palatable here.
Yeah. I can, just hearing some of the stories that you've shared, and it's just really fascinating. And then, I think what makes us so unique, not only being able to work with so many agents across, the country over the years, but, just the multiple perspectives from actually running businesses in polar opposite markets. Right. Mm-hmm. And so understanding, really kind of even from the Lawton market of really what's going on. And, I haven't caught up with Stacey Reedy in a few weeks, but, as your dad, kind of mentioned anything, kind of what's happening, in the Lawton area.
Yeah. It's slowed down dramatically. I think this is pretty well everywhere. Everybody I talk to, buyers are just sitting on the fence. They're kind of paralyzed as to what to do. Same with sellers. I mean, should we sell? Should we wait? They've got equity. I think that's one big difference in this market versus the last, is it seems, and Kevin, you might have a little more data on this than I would, but it seems to me like, there's going to be room for quite an adjustment in real estate. And these people probably can sell. Most of them, unless they bought in the last couple of years, would have the ability to sell. And I think the statistics I was looking at from KCM in the Dallas market was, in 2020 to 2021, real estate increased by 50%, appreciation 50% in 2-year period. Wow. That's just it's insane. So anybody who bought, within 2 years or longer certainly have the ability to sell if we get a hold of them.
Well, and that's where I feel that it. For many, it's when you go back to the last time we had a massive shift in the market was 14 years ago. And so you look at the average agent's been in the market, maybe 5 years, 7 years in the business. And so, as leaders, it is so important to make sure that you're spending the time with your agents so they have some success. And that's what we're just seeing. So many agents that are out there that are, they may look like a duck on the surface, nice and calm, but down below they're like their fins are paddling, their flaps are paddling super fast because they're worried, they're concerned. And so the biggest thing we're focused on is audience and message. Like who are we targeting? Like you could say defaults, but it's like that's a big spread. Like you said, if you bought in the last 12 months, you're in trouble. I mean, if you have to sell, like it's a bad situation, because more than likely you didn't put an enormous amount of money down and you're going to sell at a loss. So, it's really what's that exit strategy, and it's probably keeping it and renting it. I don't know, but it depends on the circumstance. Versus if you go back, 2, if not 3 years, and before, there's definitely some equity there. But even with those people, it's a matter of, it's all messaging. So when you're reaching out and you're on the phone, email, whatever it is, the words you use is really, really important to resonate with them, and just offer those solutions. Going back to postcards and I go back to the book I love, Tell to Win, tell a story they can relate to with an outcome they desire. And that's where we're seeing our wins, and being consistent, because many agents in this market in the last, I'd say 12 months, aren't patient. And so they're used to the wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. And they got the deal done. And that doesn't happen now. You got to be persistent and you got to be consistent.
Yeah. Because so agents listening into this and hearing that what Kevin just said, I mean, like, what are some of the activities, that, delayed gratification, although you can manufacture wins daily, like what are a lot of the activities, or a handful of activities that agents that, like Kevin was sharing, that have only been in the game, 5, 6, 7 years, like where do they need to be given their attention and their focus?
Key to the whole game is going to be, are you following up when people are ready to actually do something? And it's not going to be the wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. As Kevin was saying, it's going to be the agents that stay in touch, build relationship, try to genuinely understand and care, and are consistent and persistent. I think Kevin said it best. That's going to be where the game is won. And those agents that don't learn that are at risk for sure.
Yeah. And so, one of the things that I noticed at boot camp on Monday when I was walking them through just even the goal setting exercise, right? The personal action plan that we've used I know you've used for 20 years. And, ultimately getting clear on the targets and being ultimately responsible of how we hit our goals or we didn't, just really how many of them didn't understand even that concept of how to reverse out, a revenue target, and, what's their average sales price, their average commission, just even getting it down to really into the fundamentals. And, anybody listening in that's struggling with that, if you're kind of, 1 to 2 deals per month average, you're struggling, you're on your own, to me, I think you've got 2 options. 1, get on a great team, or 2, get into some great coaching. Because if not, I don't know, the deck is not stacked in your favor. I just noticed that, just even with the simplicity of, okay, how many deals do you need to do? And then what are the activities to make that true has really been, it was eye-opening to see how many people that just didn't even know, some of the things that I think we just take, just because we've done it for so long, we take for granted.
I'm curious. Hey, Kevin, I'm curious, what are the scenarios that you're running into most often with these notice of defaults? What situation did they get themselves into where they were unable to make payments? Is there something that you're seeing that's a common thread around the situations, or no?
I think every market is different. Certain things we're running into with our Birmingham team versus our team in Colorado. They're different. Example, in Colorado, we had such a spike, and people were having to reach and barely qualify just to get into a home. You're having rising HOA fees. I mean, it's just, I think in general, people are just strapped, and they have any little bleep or burp in their income, in their job, and they're strapped and they're tight. There's just no buffer. And
Right.
that's where, you hear a lot of people talking about, the credit card debt is at an all-time high, and people are tapping into all of their equity positions and extracting that. And that's where I really feel, based on the numbers, what we're watching, that January, February is going to hit people really hard. But typically we're seeing it's from the financial side of just, they can't afford it.
Yeah. Makes sense. I mean, when you look at, the average, person's spend, I mean, their incomes haven't gone up the last 2 years, but the inflation has been through the roof. So everything that you purchase, everything that you had a budget around, is probably blown. And if you didn't have a lot of room and a lot of savings, then you certainly would be at risk. I can see that.
There was a gentleman told me, he was dropping some stuff off at KT last week, and he said, he had moved out of the DFW area, and this goes back to, I think, what Kev just said. Their payment, they were barely able to get in there with it, but with the rise of property taxes, just pushed their payment to where it just, because, I mean, he said, shit, he goes, our property taxes, and we know, I mean, even when we sold before we moved back up here, I mean, it was, 10, 11,000 a year. And so just that right there, as that continues to rise, pushes that payment over, I could see. And that was a pain point for him. And that's why they ultimately sold, and, relocated up into Oklahoma. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely is concerning for a lot of people. Awesome. Kev, anything else that you guys are kind of seeing, or that's resonating as you guys are taking this strategy, and kind of where you guys are focused?
I'd say the big thing that where we're getting most of our wins right now with our agents and the growth of our agents and our team is really being hyper focused with them on where they're spending their time. And so, again, I go back, not to pick on the agent that's been in the business a few years. Life's all about timing and opportunities. But those, when agents get in, there was so much abundance, and now that the market is contracted, it's really looking at going back to what are the 5 or 6 key pillars of lead generation. And people, get tired of hearing that on our podcast, but it's like, that's really the focus is, you may not be that person that wants to call cold leads. That's fine. What is it that's really in line with your skill set? If you're are you the social worker type where you want to go, be face to face and help people? Great. Then go farm your neighborhood, whatever it is, really helping them go deep on what resonates with them. And then they're going to do those day-to-day activities and win and succeed. But that's what we're going, is just, we're spending a lot of time with our agents. We started something here about 30 days ago where we're doing 15 minutes called Scripts on Fire on Friday. And it's 15 minutes on what's working. And we chop it off right at 15 minutes. But it's those little bitty, what you would call deposits that we're making, that make a significant difference in sharing the wins.
Yeah. I had a conversation this morning, and she was, Pam was telling me that, Pam Martin, she was telling me that, like, she's just kind of shifted a little bit right now to focus on, when she's talking with sellers, kind of on the coming soon process, and really getting them to understand, that component. So there's always moves, right? There we talk about that from Ben Horowitz's book, Hard Thing About Hard Things. The only time you don't have a move is just when you give up. So there's always an angle, there's always an opportunity. and what's that message that's going to resonate with who your audience is. And I know Kyle Davis here in Norman is really running hard with the offer, cash offer. And he actually, just bought his first home with that offer. And so, those people are listening to that message, and it's a message that, Stace and Reedy still run to this day in the Lawton, in the Lawton market, the guaranteed, your home sold guaranteed, or I'll buy it. And it's those type of messages that are really starting to, continue to really start to resonate for a lot of people.
I read an article in Inman this morning, and it said that, and this was a survey that was done in second quarter, and it said 65% of Americans or homeowners would consider taking $45,500 less for their home for a cash offer for convenience and timing. Now, obviously third quarter, maybe those numbers are different, but it just tells you how robust that offer was. Maybe that was because so many people had so much equity, and maybe it was because those offers were potentially, overvalue or close enough to value that they were able to walk, that they wanted the convenience. But I believe that it'll be interesting next year of what that messaging, what the true messaging will be for the consumer as far as resonating. And then again, you have the disposition piece of as all that inventory hits the market, how will that affect pricing? So I think for agents, they just got to really be a student of the game. Like Jay always says, you don't have to be the smartest one, just sit next to them. And so I think you really got to know your market data, know your numbers in your market, and really understand, be able to ask. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and a gentleman's like, when you're sitting in an appointment, there's a certain point where there's a change in body language, and that should be the indication that you need to stop talking and you need to start listening. And so I think we need to be better listeners and really understand what problems we can solve for the consumer. Because if you're not solving the consumer's problem, then you're not going to get them to engage, and there's not an opportunity there.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. Because what are you, I know you pay attention on kind of higher level as well with a lot of these other companies and kind of what's going on out there. I know a lot of the mom and pops, a lot of the independents, are concerned, they're nervous, but there's also some big boys out there that are having some challenges. And, I had a great conversation with old Cliffy Monday night at boot camp. And, his outlook is it's going to be interesting for some of these big boys in the coming quarters. Anything, because I know you're so deep into even paying attention to these companies. Anything that need to be thinking about? Or
well, there's a lot of them that weren't making money when it was the best real estate market we've ever had, and I think it's only going to get tougher for those companies. It's really hard to right the ship and turn it to profitability when you're got 30%, 40% less sales than you had, and going into a dark winter and then coming out into next year, we'll see how things go. But I think there's going to be several companies that struggle. A lot of these newer up and coming ones that are kind of competitors of ours are they're not profitable, and it's going to be hard to raise money. Come time to raise money, it's going to be difficult for them to be able to continue. So I think we'll see, if you guys remember the company Help You Sell.
Yeah.
So like when they went out of business, they had, I can't remember the exact number, but it was in the thousands of franchises. And, by all means, they looked like they were doing really well, but when the market shifted, because they were operating on such thin margins, they couldn't survive and they went under. And so, it wouldn't surprise me if we see a few headlines like that over the course of the next couple of years with these companies that just their margins are just too tight.
Yeah. I forget how you put it. It was a few months ago. You were studying something and you said, I forget how you put it, but it's not like history actually repeats itself, but it gives you the indicators of what's to come. Do you remember what that was?
Yeah. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. But it always rhymes.
That was it. Yeah.
And so, there's nuances and things that are different about this downturn, but there's this ebb and flow that's always been around. And, if you pay attention to it, you kind of could see this was coming. May not look exactly the same as it did in 07 and 08, but there are certainly some similarities, to what we're going to be experiencing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
Jay,
t-shirt.
Jay, you'll get a kick out of this. I was, so my wife was bugging me for probably for 5 years now, these couple of boxes sitting in my storage room that I haven't moved. And so she's like, what the heck are these? And so I said, man, those are like my coaching stuff. So I opened these, it was last Sunday, I opened this box up and I started pulling out all the old Ken Duree stuff, like back from 2009 when I joined you guys in the coaching, and I got all my binders from the masterminds. But anyway, I was looking at all this stuff, and I found my short sale, my packet on my short sale campaigns of all my oversized jumbo newsletters. And I got sitting right next to my desk.
Yeah.
And I actually got the order sheet for got print. I have everything.
Yeah.
And we're firing that baby back up here the first of the year. But it's so when you go back to history repeating itself, it was a blast from the past. But
all that stuff is super relevant again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Yeah, just being able to look at, hey, there's a reason why we don't throw that stuff out, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
There's a good reason.
It's so good. Hey, I know we're about to wrap up here. Any final thoughts, things to kind of think about as we're wrapping up the year, heading into 23, Kev?
I would just say from a leadership standpoint, for people that are running teams, is pour into your people and make sure that you're either teaching or you're listening, because there's a lot to be learned. Who has what you want, and then go study them. And for the new agents, they just need to really commit to the process. Again, be students, put the time in and understand where their highest skill set is, and then really pour into that. And a gentleman told me that last night, where I was talking last night on the podcast, was about there's a certain point where you need to acquire the knowledge, and then there's the certain point where you make the shift and you focus on your competitive advantage. And that's where watching and listening to things like this is obviously going to give those people a competitive advantage.
I love it. Cuz, final thoughts?
Yeah. Become the student. I mean, this is definitely the time for you to be doubling down on the data and understanding the marketplace. And so you can be a voice of reason in the marketplace and actually help people, with the content you're creating and things of that nature. So be a student of the game. Obviously I'm always a big promoter of Keeping Current Matters. I still listen to it every month. It's where I get most of my knowledge. I think it's the most compiled resource that there is out there. So make sure do your due diligence and be a good listener and genuinely care about people. I think that's how you really survive through a time like this.
Well said, fellas. Well, I know this was a treat, and having you guys both jump in and just deliver a ton of valuable insight and information and knowledge. And I know we'll have to do it again. Awesome. We'll see you guys.
Man. Appreciate y'all.
Happy holidays.